many months ago, I made two big predictions in Forbes. First, the next president wouldn't define crypto's future, Congress would. And second, Democrats fumbled their crypto moment and needed a recovery plan before 2028. So, was I right? Was I wrong? And what did I completely miss? It turns out the answer is yes, yes, and wow. I'm Dr. Tonya M, and this is Confidently Crypto. Hey everybody, welcome to Confidently Crypto, the podcast that keeps you ready for what's now, what's new, and what's next in the digital asset economy. I'm your host, Professor Tonya M. Evans, crypto educator, fintech consultant, executive advisor, Forbes contributor, and board member at one of the largest cryptocurrency companies in the world. And I help people like you navigate the digital asset economy with clarity and confidence without the hype, legally, safely, and confidently. If you're new here, go ahead and tap that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're returning, you already know this is where smart people come to go from crypto curious to confident. And if you want to go to the head of the class, head on over to proftanyaevans.com to access on-demand trainings, courses, resources, and consulting, and join the movement for digital wealth building on your terms. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to my Substack, the Advantage Evans FinTech News and Trends Report, for weekly insights at the intersection of financial inclusion, economic justice, intellectual property, Web3, and the law, delivered straight to your inbox each week. Now, today I'm doing something a little different. Instead of covering this week's headlines, I'm doing a full policy deep dive. And I'm revisiting two Forbes articles I wrote in late 2024, holding myself accountable to the predictions I made and breaking down what these 15 months of legislative chaos tell us about what's coming next. So let's get into it. Now, let me start with what I got right and give credit where it's due. The 119th Congress actually produced the first significant crypto legislation in American history. And that's not a small thing because for years we've talked about regulatory clarity. For years we've been begging for Congress to act. And in July 2025, during what everybody now calls Crypto Week, they actually did something. The Genius Act was signed into law on July 18th, 2025, and it created a federal regulatory framework for stablecoins, which are crypto tokens pegged to the US dollar, requiring one-to-one reserve backing, establishing federal state oversight, and explicitly removing payment stablecoins from the SEC's and CFTC's jurisdictional reach. And the Senate passed it 68-30 with 17 Democrats joining Republicans. The House followed with a 308-122 vote. That's genuine bipartisan action, not spin. That's math. And during that same crypto week, the House also passed the Clarity Act by a vote of 294-134, establishing market structure rules that would divide digital asset oversight between the SEC and CFTC. So my central thesis held up. Congress, not the White House, holds the regulatory pen ultimately. But here's what I underestimated: how difficult the last mile would be. Clarity Act is still stuck in the Senate 7 months after the House passed it. The Senate Banking Committee and Agriculture Committee have both been running parallel and sometimes competing legislative tracks. In January, the Ag Committee advanced its version on a straight party line vote, 12-11. That's a historic first for crypto market structure in the Senate. But that partisan split, it tells a more troubling story. We got the stablecoin law, but market structure, which is the comprehensive framework that institutional adoption demands and American competitiveness requires, well, that's still unfinished business, half the job. Give them a B minus or maybe a C plus on a generous day. Now let's talk about the Democrats, because this is where things got messy. In November 2024, I described the Democrats' crypto misstep as a fumble, recoverable with the right strategy. And what's happened since is more accurately described as a fracture. The party is now split into at least three distinct camps. And I need you to understand this because how this plays out will determine whether we get market structure legislation this year or not. Camp one, the pro crypto Dems, Senators Kirsten Gillibrand, Ruben Gallego, Angela Alsobrooks, and Mark Warner. And these are lawmakers who've been actively negotiating on market structure legislation. They want clear rules. Warner said just last week at a banking committee hearing that he still wants the bill to move forward. And that's significant. That tells us the negotiating track hasn't been abandoned. Camp two, the Warren wing. Senator Elizabeth Warren has turned crypto into her primary anti-corruption weapon. She's not moved off that spot. She's tying every piece of digital asset legislation to the Trump family's expanding crypto empire, from the Trump meme coin to World Liberty Financial's $2 billion stablecoin deal with Abu Dhabi-backed firms. Warren circulated a fact sheet to all Senate Dems, making the case that the Genius Act enables presidential self-dealing. Listen, her camp successfully blocked the initial Senate floor vote on the Genius Act back in May 2025 before it was eventually revised and passed. So she has real power here. Camp three, the pragmatic middle. Dems like Amy Klobuchar, who voted against the Ag Committee's structure bill, but explicitly said she hoped negotiations would continue. And these members aren't opposed to crypto legislation in principle. They're trying to extract concessions on DeFi oversight, anti-money laundering provisions, and the ethics questions that Warren has elevated. Here's why this matters to you. The 60-vote Senate threshold means no crypto bill passes without meaningful Democratic support. And right now, Dems aren't just divided on crypto, they're pulling in opposite directions. Back in 2024, the party was simply failing to engage with crypto, and now they're actively engaged. But the question of whether digital asset legislation is a corruption vehicle or an innovation opportunity has become a litmus test within the party. And there's no consensus, no resolution in sight. And that fumble I described, it's worse now because you can recover from a fumble, but a fracture takes time to heal, if it heals at all. Now, let me walk you through something I absolutely got right and a few things I completely missed. First, the money. In my original Forbes piece, I argued that congressional power would be shaped by industry spending, and that's proven true in ways that extend beyond what I had anticipated. Fair Shake, the crypto industry's lead super PAC, is now sitting on $193 million for the 2026 midterms. Just let that number sink in. That's nearly $60 million more than the group spent across the entire 2024 cycle. They've already dropped $5 million into an Alabama Senate primary and committed funds to House Financial Services Chair French Hill. Remember, Fair Shake's 2024 playbook included spending $40 million to defeat crypto critic Sherrod Brown in Ohio. Every senator facing voters this November is acutely aware of that track record, and Fair Shake's spokesperson has said it plainly. They will oppose anti-crypto politicians and support pro-crypto leaders. That's both a carrot and a stick. And during markup sessions, during floor votes, that money talks. Meanwhile, Democrats who benefited from crypto PAC support in 2024, Gallego, Elissa Slotkin, and others, now occupy the exact swing vote positions I predicted would matter most. Congress is defining crypto's future, and the internal Democratic debate is the bottleneck. And now let me get to the wild cards, the things I did not see coming. First, Senator Cynthia Lummis, chair of the Digital Assets Subcommittee, announced in December that she won't seek re-election. That creates a leadership vacuum at the worst possible time because market structure negotiations need a Senate champion with deep technical fluency. Lummis plans to sprint toward the finish line before leaving office in January 2027, but her lame duck status complicates coalition building. Losing her institutional knowledge and relationships That's a blow to the process. Second, the Trump factor. And this is a big one, the thing that has fundamentally altered the political calculus. It's one thing to have a president who's rhetorically pro crypto, but it's another thing entirely to have a president whose family business launched a stablecoin after the relevant legislation passed committee. The Trump meme coin, World Liberty Financial, the Abu Dhabi deal. This gives Warren's corruption argument genuine bite, even among Dems who are otherwise sympathetic to innovation. The question now isn't just whether crypto legislation is good policy, it's whether passing it enriches the president. And that question has poisoned the well for bipartisan cooperation in ways I did not anticipate when I wrote those articles back in 2024. So, what does all of this mean for you? The everyday investor, the crypto curious professional, the person trying to figure out whether this space is worth your time and your money. So, here's my assessment. The market structure bill's fate likely comes down to the next few months. Senator Warner's signal that he wants the bill to advance is encouraging. The White House is convening meetings between crypto firms, traditional banks, and lawmakers to bridge disputes over stablecoin yield. The banking committee still needs to hold its own markup, a step that has been delayed repeatedly since November. But the 2026 midterms create both urgency and distraction. Lawmakers will increasingly focus on re-election after the summer, narrowing the legislative window. And here's a number worth watching. Prediction markets currently give Democrats a 79% chance of winning the House majority. If that happens, you're looking at a fundamentally different committee structure and legislative agenda starting in 2027. And the clock is ticking. Now, here's what I want you to take away from all of this. If market structure legislation doesn't pass this year, the industry will still have the Genius Act. We'll still have SEC guidance. We'll still have a friendlier regulatory posture than anything that existed 18 months ago. Progress has been made, real, tangible legislative progress. But we won't have the comprehensive framework that institutional adoption demands. And here's why that matters for the communities I center in every episode of this podcast. Black and Latino crypto adoption rates remain significantly higher than the national average. Walking away from this technology walks away from those constituents. The smarter path, the path I've been advocating since day one of my involvement, is robust market structure legislation that includes strong ethics provisions, anti-money laundering requirements, and genuine consumer protections while supporting the innovation framework that will benefit the communities who need financial inclusion the most. It's not a Republican position. That's not a Democratic position. That's a common sense position. I wrote in October 2024 that the next president wouldn't define crypto's future. That's still true. But what I add now is that Congress is defining it more slowly, more messily, and with more partisan complication than the industry had hoped. The pen is in Congress's hand, and the question is whether both parties can muster the political will to write something worth signing. If this episode helps you understand what's really happening behind the crypto headlines, share it. Share it with a friend who thinks crypto is just for tech bros. Share it with someone who's on the fence about whether regulation matters, because it does. And we need more informed voices in this conversation. Subscribe to Confidently Crypto wherever you get your podcasts. Leave that 5-star review. It really helps others to find the show and supports creators like me and the entire Financially Speaking podcast team. We're working so hard to reshape access, ownership, and opportunity in the next chapter of the financial system. Want personalized guidance for you or your firm? Visit proftonyaevans.com. Learn more about my advisory services, courses, and resources. You can't manage what you don't measure. And finally, be sure to subscribe to the Advantage Evans FinTech News and Trends Report. You do all of that at proftonyaevans.com or directly in Substack if you search my name or at Advantage Evans. Check that out for deeper dives into topics like this delivered every week. I'm Dr. Tonya M. Evans, and this is Confidently Crypto, where you get the real story behind the crypto headlines. Until next time, stay curious, stay current, and stay confidently crypto.